Aaron lived on the edge of the colony where the land stretched into wide plains. His home was simple, made from metal walls and strong wooden beams. Every morning he worked with soil, growing food for the people of the colony. Life here was quiet, almost too quiet. Days felt the same, with little change, until one afternoon the sky broke with light. He was returning from the field when he saw a bright flash in the distance. It was not the sun. It was not lightning. It was something else. The light fell from the clouds and struck the far valley with a sound like thunder. Smoke rose, and the air shook as if the ground itself had taken a breath. Aaron dropped his tools and ran toward the valley. When he reached the slope, he looked down and froze. A ship rested on the grass, strange in shape, curved like the wings of a bird. Its surface shimmered silver, smooth and perfect, unlike the rough machines the colony used. One side of the ship was torn, sparks leaping from broken parts. A door opened slowly, and someone stepped out. Aaron expected a soldier or a machine, but what he saw was nothing he had known. A girl, taller than him, with skin faintly pale blue and hair that flowed like water. Her eyes were wide, clear as crystal, watching the valley with both calm and worry. She looked hurt, one arm pressed against her side. Yet she walked with steady steps, as if she refused to show weakness. Aaron's heart beat fast. He knew the rules. Strangers from the sky could be a danger. Colonists were told to stay away and wait for the guards. But something in him told him not to run. She looked alone, and though she was strange, she was no monster. He stepped forward, raising his hands to show he had no weapon. The girl noticed him and stopped. Her eyes fixed on him, sharp but not cruel. She spoke, her words soft and flowing, but he could not understand. The language was unknown to him. Aaron shook his head slowly. He pointed to himself and said, "Aaron." Then he pointed to her, waiting. For a moment she only watched. Then she touched her chest and said, "Nira." Her voice carried a tone like music. She looked tired, but there was strength in her face. When a sharp wind cut through the valley, she winced and pressed her hand harder against her side. Aaron took a careful step closer. He could see a wound near her arm, not deep but bleeding. She needed help. He lifted his hands again, showing calm, then pointed toward the colony in the distance. Nero looked at the buildings, then at him. Her eyes narrowed, unsure if she could trust. Aaron slowly bent, picked up a small water flask from his belt, and placed it on the ground between them. He stepped back. She watched him, then crouched and picked it up. She sniffed the water, then drank. For the first time her lips curved into a faint smile. Trust had begun. Nira spoke again, trying new words, but Aaron could not follow. Still, he heard her say his name, shaped differently in her voice. It made him feel strange inside, as if his name had turned into something new. He tried her name too. Nira. She tilted her head slightly, approving. They walked together to the broken ship. Aaron could see strange devices inside, glowing faintly. He touched nothing, only looked. Nira pointed at a piece of metal half buried in the dirt. Sparks leaped from it. She made a motion with her hands, like asking him to pull it free. Aaron gripped it and dragged it away, feeling the heat. Nira gave a short nod of thanks. The sun lowered, casting red light over the valley. Aaron knew the guards would soon come to see what had fallen. He also knew they might not treat Nero with kindness. Fear of strangers often made people act harsh. He looked at her, standing tall though wounded, and felt she deserved better. He wanted to keep her safe, at least until she could speak for herself. Nira touched his shoulder lightly. It was a small gesture, but it felt heavy with meaning. She spoke softly, her eyes holding his. Though he could not understand the words, he understood her tone. It was thanks. When the night came, The colony's alarm lights shone in the distance. Aaron knew patrols would arrive. Nira saw them too. Her eyes grew tense, but she did not move to run. Instead she stayed by his side. Aaron raised a hand toward her, open and steady. He whispered, almost to himself, "It's all right." She did not know the words, but she seemed to sense his meaning. That night would mark the beginning of something the colony had never seen before. A human farmer and an alien traveler stood side by side in the valley, the smoke of a fallen ship curling into the sky above them. Their first meeting was simple, yet it carried a weight that would change both their lives, and perhaps the future of two worlds. The morning after the crash, the colony guards reached the valley. They carried rifles and spoke in harsh voices, warning Aaron to step away from the alien ship. Aaron obeyed, but he did not move far. He kept his eyes on Nira, who stood tall though she was wounded. The guards circled her, speaking in the human tongue, but she shook her head. She could not understand. When one of the guards pointed his weapon, Nira's eyes hardened, and she placed her hand near a small device on her belt. Aaron feared she might use it, so he quickly stepped forward. "Wait," he shouted. "She is not our enemy." The guards frowned, not trusting his words. The commander, an older man named Bram, ordered his men to lower their rifles but not relax. He looked at the damaged ship, then at Nira. "She will be taken to the colony," he said. "We need answers." Nira seemed to understand she was being moved. She did not resist as they guided her into the settlement. Aaron followed, feeling a strange pull to stay near her. In the colony, people gathered to see the alien girl. Some whispered in fear, others stared with wonder. Children hid behind their parents. The elders met in the council hall and argued. Some said she was a danger. Others said she might bring knowledge. In the end, they allowed her to stay under watch until she could repair her ship. Aaron was given the task of helping her, since he had first contact. He felt nervous but also proud. Nira was placed in a small room near the supply building. Her wound was treated by the healer, though she did not like the sting of human medicine. When Aaron brought her food, bread and fruit, she studied it carefully before eating. She seemed curious about every detail, as if human life was new to her. Days passed, and slowly she began to learn simple words. Aaron taught her by pointing at objects. "Water," he said, holding a cup. She repeated, "water." Her accent was different, but clear enough. He pointed to himself. "Aaron." She pointed at him and repeated his name, smiling faintly. He pointed at her. "Nira." She nodded. They laughed when mistakes happened, though her laugh was soft, almost like music. Aaron showed her the fields where crops grew. She bent down, touched the soil, and nodded with interest. "Strong," she said in broken human speech. She then drew a pattern in the dirt, a map of stars, and pointed upward. Aaron realized she was showing him her home among the stars. Though her words were few, her meaning was clear. Her people lived far, among systems humans had never reached. She told him, through gestures and broken speech, that she had been exploring alone when her ship was damaged by a storm in space. The colonists remained cautious. Some avoided her. A few children, brave and curious, approached her when Aaron was near. She did not push them away. Instead she handed them small shining stones from her pouch, glowing faintly like captured starlight. The children gasped in wonder, and from that day some of the fear began to fade. At night, Aaron and Nira often sat outside her room, looking at the stars. She pointed at constellations, giving names he could not pronounce. He told her human names for the same stars. Sometimes they were the same, sometimes different. They laughed at how small the universe seemed when two worlds had looked at the same sky and drawn different pictures. One evening, a storm rolled across the plains. Heavy rain struck the metal roofs of the colony. Lightning flashed, and Nira stood at the window, watching with sharp eyes. Aaron asked why she looked so serious. She drew a quick image on the table using spilled water, showing a ship with jagged shapes around it. He understood. Her ship had been broken in a storm like this. She feared the same storm might come again. Aaron placed a hand over hers, gently, to show calm. She looked at him, surprised at first, then let her hand rest without pulling away. Something unspoken passed between them. By the end of the week, Nero walked freely around the colony, though guards still watched. She helped repair small machines with strange tools from her ship, showing the colonists methods they had never seen. She could repair broken wires with a single touch of her device. She could seal metal as if it were clay. Even the doubtful Commander Bram admitted she had skill worth respecting. The people began to see her not as a threat but as a guest. Still, many whispered that it was Aaron who trusted her most, and Nira seemed to stay close to him whenever she could. Late one night, while others slept, Aaron returned to the valley where her ship lay. Nira followed him, carrying a small lantern. Together they walked around the broken hull. Sparks still flickered from the torn side. Nira touched the ship with sadness in her eyes. Aaron wished he could fix it for her, but he knew little of alien machines. She spoke softly, her words mixed of human and her own tongue. Home, far. She pointed to the stars, then placed her hand on her chest. Here, safe. Aaron did not fully understand, but he felt the weight of her voice. She was far from her people, yet here she had found a place of safety. He nodded slowly, as if making a silent promise to protect that feeling for her. That night the bond between them grew stronger. They were no longer only a farmer and an alien visitor. They were companions learning to trust each other, even while the future remained uncertain. The days in the colony grew calmer after Nira's arrival. People still watched her carefully, but she had earned some trust. She worked with Aaron in the fields and in the workshops. With her help, old machines ran smoother, and broken tools were fixed faster. Even the children followed her with wide eyes, eager to see the small wonders she carried from her ship. But calm never lasted long on the frontier. One evening, a trader ship landed at the colony. The captain, a man with rough hands and tired eyes, went straight to the council. His voice was low but heavy with warning. Raiders had been seen in nearby systems. These raiders were not simple thieves. They were groups of armed men and women who struck weak colonies, taking food, fuel, and people if they could. The trader said he had escaped only because his ship was fast. Others had not been so lucky. The news spread quickly. Fear settled over the colony like a shadow. The people were hard-working farmers and builders, not soldiers. They had a few weapons and a small shield generator, but nothing strong enough to face raiders. Aaron felt the fear too, but when he looked at Nira, he saw something else. She was not afraid. She was angry. That night, while others argued about what to do, Aaron sat with her near the valley where her ship still rested. She traced shapes in the dirt with a stick. The shapes were not random. They were ships, drawn with skill, and arrows showing attacks. You know them? Aaron asked slowly. Nero looked at him and nodded. Her broken human words came out sharp. Raiders, cruel. Take, destroy. She then made a motion with her hands, one sweeping over the drawings as if wiping them away. Aaron understood. She meant they left nothing behind. Aaron's stomach tightened. Can we fight them? Nira shook her head at first, then pointed at her broken ship. She tapped a part of its side where strange marks glowed faintly. Power, gone. Ship, weak. But then her eyes lifted, steady and strong. Together, maybe. The next day she spoke to the council. Her words were halting, but her meaning was clear. She warned that the raiders would not ignore a colony like theirs. They would come sooner or later. The elders listened, uneasy. Some of them whispered that Nira knew too much about the raiders. Perhaps she was leading them here. Commander Bram voiced the doubt aloud. How do we know she is not a signal for them? Maybe her ship crashed on purpose. Nira stood silent, her jaw set, unable to answer fully in human speech. The room grew tense. Aaron stepped forward. She fought to help us since the first day. She fixed our tools, taught us new ways. If she meant harm, why save us at all? Some nodded at his words, others shook their heads. The council ended the meeting with no decision. Fear divided them more than it united. That night the sky above the plains glowed faintly red. At first people thought it was a storm. But Nira rushed outside, eyes sharp. She pointed at the glow, her voice tight. Raiders. Moments later, the alarms rang. Small ships flew across the horizon, their engines leaving trails of fire. The colony scattered into action. People grabbed weapons, sealed doors, and rushed children into shelters. The shield generator was activated, casting a faint blue dome over the main buildings. The raiders circled above, testing the defenses. Loudspeakers shouted threats, demanding surrender of supplies. Their voices were cruel and mocking. Aaron stood with a rifle in his hands, though he had never fired in battle before. His hands shook, but he held his ground. Beside him, Nira worked quickly with her strange tools, strengthening parts of the shield generator. Sparks flew as she pressed her device against the machine, sealing cracks. Hold, she said firmly. The first attack came as a blast of fire struck the shield. The dome shimmered but held. People cheered faintly, but Nira shook her head. Not long, she warned. Through the night, the raiders pressed harder. The shield flickered with each strike. The colonists fired back with their rifles, but their shots barely scratched the enemy ships. Aaron saw fear in the eyes of his neighbors. Many wanted to give up. Some shouted that Nira had brought this fate. Others begged the council to open the gates. But Nira did not waver. She stood tall, shouting instructions in her broken speech. Together strong. Fight, not run. Aaron believed her. He shouted her words to the others, turning her short phrases into longer calls of courage. Slowly, the people began to listen. They realized that surrender would not save them. When the raiders landed at the edge of the plains, preparing to storm the shield on foot, Nira stepped forward with a device from her ship. She pressed it into the dirt. Strange lights spread outward, forming a barrier of energy that stopped the raiders' first wave. The colonists gasped in awe. But Nira staggered after using the device. It drained her strength. Aaron caught her before she fell. She gave him a firm look, as if saying she would not stop until the colony was safe. The battle had only begun. As dawn neared, smoke rose from the plains, and the sound of engines shook the air. The raiders were not leaving. They wanted the colony, and they would not rest until they broke its people. Aaron looked at Nira, then at his neighbors who now stood ready with weapons. For the first time, he felt that humanity was not weak. They could fight if they stood together. Nira's voice cut through the rising fear. We fight, or we lose all. And with those words, the colony prepared for the hardest struggle of its life. The raiders came with the first light of morning. Their ships circled above the plains like vultures, engines roaring, and weapons flashing. The colony's blue shield shimmered with every strike, glowing weaker as the energy drained. The people huddled inside their homes, fear written across every face. Aaron stood with a rifle near the shield generator, his chest tight with nerves. He had never fought a real battle, but he refused to run. Beside him, Nira worked with steady hands, pressing her strange device against the generator to hold it together. Sparks lit her face, and sweat rolled down her brow, but she did not stop. The council members shouted orders. Commander Bram directed the guards to cover the walls, aiming rifles at the raiders preparing to land. Farmers carried weapons for the first time in their lives. Women and older children hauled supplies into shelters. The whole colony was moving as one, but fear still tugged at their hearts. The first raider ship landed at the edge of the fields. Its doors burst open, and armored figures rushed out. They carried heavy guns and wore masks painted with red marks. Their voices were loud and cruel as they shouted to each other. The colonists fired back. Gunfire cracked across the open land. Dust flew, metal sparked, and the cries of battle filled the air. Aaron's rifle shook in his hands, but he pulled the trigger. His shot struck the dirt near a raider, forcing the enemy to duck. The sound alone gave him courage to fire again. Nira shouted, "Left side weak." She pointed to a section of the shield where blasts struck hardest. Aaron repeated her words in human speech, and the guards rushed to reinforce that area. For the first time, the colonists began to move with rhythm, guided by her sharp eyes. A blast finally tore a hole in the shield. The blue dome flickered, leaving an opening. Raiders charged through, yelling with cruel joy. Aaron's heart froze, but he aimed and fired. A raider fell back, his weapon slipping from his hands. The colonists roared, pushing forward with new strength. Still, more raiders poured in. The air filled with smoke and burning smells. Houses caught fire, and children screamed in fear. Bram shouted for everyone to hold the line, but his voice cracked under the strain. Nero left the generator and ran to the broken edge of the shield. She pulled a silver rod from her belt and slammed it into the ground. A wave of energy burst out, pushing raiders back. The colonists gasped in shock. For a moment the enemy fell, and the people felt hope. But Nira dropped to one knee. The device drained her strength again. Aaron rushed to her side, helping her stand. She pressed a hand to his shoulder, her eyes fierce. "Fight, not fear." Aaron nodded and turned to his neighbors. "She's right. If we give in, we lose everything. Stand with me." His voice carried louder than he expected, and the colonists rallied. Farmers, guards, and traders all raised their weapons together. The battle dragged into the afternoon. Raiders pressed hard, but the colonists used every wall, every roof, every corner to fight back. They poured water on flames, pulled the wounded to safety, and returned to the fight with grit. Even the children carried stones to throw at the invaders. The colony was no longer a place of farmers hiding in fear. It was a fortress of people fighting for home. Nero moved through the chaos like a warrior born. She guided groups to weak points, showed them how to aim at raiders' armor, and used her strange devices to shield them from heavy fire. Though her strength faded each time she used her tools, her will never broke. She was not defending only herself, she was defending their world. At one point, a group of raiders cornered Aaron behind a broken fence. His rifle jammed, and panic rose in his chest. Before they could fire, Nero leapt between them. She struck the ground with another device, releasing a flash of blinding light. The raiders stumbled, their weapons dropping. Aaron pulled Nero back, both of them running to safety. As the sun lowered, the raiders' ships lifted again, circling with frustration. They had lost many fighters, but the colony still stood. Smoke rose from burned homes, but the shield generator still glowed faintly under Nira's repairs. The raiders made one last push. They landed their largest ship near the outer fields. A towering figure stepped out, clad in black armor with a blade of red metal. He was their leader. His voice thundered across the field. "This colony is mine." Fear gripped the people, but Nira stepped forward, her body weak yet her spirit strong. She raised her last device, planting it in the earth. Aaron ran to stand beside her, rifle ready. The colonists followed, forming a line at their backs. The raider leader charged, his blade glowing. Nira pressed the device, and a wave of energy erupted, lifting dust and light into the air. Aaron fired, the colonists fired, and together they struck the leader down. His blade fell into the dirt, his body motionless. The remaining raiders saw their commander fall. Fear replaced their cruelty. One by one, they ran back to their ships. Engines roared, and soon the sky was empty again. The colony was scarred but alive. Fires still burned, walls were broken, but the people had held their ground. They had not surrendered. They had fought with courage. In the fading light, Aaron looked at Nira. She was exhausted, leaning on him for support, but her eyes still burned with strength. The people gathered around, many bowing their heads in respect. The battle for the colony was over. The raiders had been driven away, not by strength of weapons alone, but by the will of farmers, families, and one alien girl who stood with them. For the first time, the colony felt more than survival. It felt proud. The sun rose slowly over the colony the next morning. Smoke still drifted from broken houses, and the ground was dark with ashes. People walked the streets in silence, repairing what they could. The battle had ended, but the weight of it still rested on their hearts. Aaron moved through the colony with tired steps. His arms ached from carrying water, his back hurt from hauling wood, but he did not complain. Everyone was working. Farmers who once only touched soil now lifted broken walls. Children carried buckets to help the wounded. The colony was alive, and that was victory enough. Nira walked beside him, slower than usual. Her face was pale, and her hands shook faintly. She had used much of her strength during the fight. Still, her eyes scanned the streets, making sure people were safe. Some colonists looked at her with cautious glances, but most now showed respect. They remembered how she had stood in front of them when the raiders broke through. They remembered how she had turned the tide when hope seemed gone. Commander Bram himself came to her. His voice was rough, but his words carried weight. "You saved us. I doubted you, and I was wrong." He bowed his head briefly. Nira tilted her head, not fully understanding his words, but she caught the tone. She gave a short nod in return. That night, the council gathered in the meeting hall. Aaron was called to stand with Nira. The elders thanked her for her courage and promised she would be treated not as a prisoner but as a friend of the colony. A cheer rose from the people gathered outside the hall. For the first time, Nira's name was spoken with pride across the colony. After the meeting, Aaron and Nira walked together to the valley where her broken ship still rested. The hull was cracked, the wires burned. Nira touched the metal gently, her eyes soft with sadness. Aaron stood beside her, unsure what to say. "You miss your home," he said quietly. Nira looked at him and nodded. "Far, family, stars," she whispered. Her voice trembled for the first time since he had met her. Aaron wanted to tell her she could return, but they both knew her ship was badly damaged. The colony had no parts to repair it. Even if she sent a signal, it might take years for her people to find her. She was alone here. Yet as the two of them stood under the night sky, silence between them, Aaron felt she was not truly alone anymore. She had them. She had him. The days turned to weeks. Slowly, the colony healed. Houses were rebuilt, fields were cleared, and the shield generator was fixed with Nira's guidance. People began to laugh again, though the scars of battle remained. Nira became part of the daily life. She helped the farmers use better methods to plant seeds. She showed the children how to build simple devices for learning. She even sat with the healer, sharing herbs and methods from her people. Aaron often worked by her side. He listened when she tried new human words. He taught her songs of the colony, and she hummed them softly with her clear voice. When he was tired, she brought him water. When she was quiet, he sat with her in silence. Their bond grew without need for many words. One evening, After a long day of work, Aaron and Nira sat on the hill overlooking the colony. The rebuilt homes shone with lantern light, and the stars stretched endless above them. A cool breeze moved through the grass. Aaron watched the sky and spoke without thinking. His voice was low, almost carried away by the wind. "I wish I could marry her," he thought he had whispered to himself. But Nira's head turned. Her eyes, clear as crystal, fixed on him. For a long moment she said nothing. Aaron's heart froze. He had not meant for her to hear. Then Nira spoke, her words careful but firm. "Marry me." Aaron's face burned. He stumbled with his words. I did not mean I did," but he stopped, unable to explain. Nira studied him. Her expression was unreadable. Then, slowly, she reached out and placed her hand over his. Her touch was warm, steady. "Yes," she said quietly. One word, but it shook him more than the loudest thunder. Aaron's breath caught. He looked at her, searching her face. She was serious. She had heard his heart, and she had answered. The world around them seemed to pause. The lanterns flickered below, the stars shone above, and for that moment there was nothing but the two of them on the hill. From that night, their bond was no longer hidden in silence. It was spoken, even if only between them. The colony did not yet know, and the future was unclear. But for Aaron and Nira, the path had changed. Their hearts had chosen. After that quiet night on the hill, life in the colony returned to normal. Fields grew green, homes were repaired, and people smiled more freely. But for Aaron and Nira, a new challenge had appeared. Their hearts were bound, but the world around them had rules they could not ignore. Nira had spoken to Aaron about her people. "Bond, strong," she said one evening while they worked on small repairs to her ship. "But, law. My people, strict." Aaron looked at her, curious and anxious. "What kind of law?" She hesitated, then tried to explain. "Alien, cannot, human marry, without choice, elders." She pointed to herself, then the sky. "If I choose, cannot return, home, same." Aaron's chest tightened. He had never thought love could carry such consequences. "If you choose me," he whispered, "you cannot go back to your family." Nira nodded. "Yes. Far, stars, family, home. Lost." They sat in silence. The stars above seemed brighter that night, yet they felt farther than ever. Aaron wanted to tell her it did not matter. That they could face the world together. But Nira's eyes held worry. She feared the judgment of her people and the limits of human life. The next day, the colony elders noticed their closeness. Some whispered among themselves, cautious and unsure. Others argued. "What does it mean if an alien stays here permanently?" one asked. "How will it affect our colony?" Commander Bram approached Aaron. "You trust her," he said. "Do you know what that could mean? She is not like us. Her laws may conflict with ours." Aaron looked at Nira, who was quietly repairing a shield device. "I trust her with my life," he said firmly. "We fought together. She saved this colony. And she is my heart. Nothing else matters." Bram did not answer but left him with a long, thoughtful glance. Later, Nira and Aaron walked through the valley where her ship rested. She touched the damaged hull, her fingers tracing the cracks. "Ship, broken, cannot fly soon," she said softly. "If I stay, must decide." Aaron took her hand. "We can face this together," he said. "Whatever choice you make, I will be by your side." Nira looked at him, her eyes shining. "Choice, hard, rules, family," she paused, drawing a deep breath. "If I choose you, cannot return, cannot see stars, same. Humans, life, Small, limited. Aaron gently squeezed her hand. Stars may be far, but our world is here. We can make a home together. You will not be alone. For the next few days, Nira spoke with the colony elders. She tried to explain her feelings and intentions. Her broken human words were enough for them to understand her sincerity, though some remained skeptical. Her bond with Aaron is strong, Bram admitted. But what if her people come looking? Or if she regrets leaving them? Nira nodded. She understood their fears. Her people were strict and proud. Choosing a human meant breaking traditions. It could bring shame to her family and anger among her people. Yet her heart told her to remain here. She could not ignore the bond she felt with Aaron. One evening, Aaron found her sitting on a hill, looking at the stars as if saying goodbye to them silently. He sat beside her. "Have you made a choice?" he asked softly. Nira shook her head. "Not yet. Must think, must know, my heart." She looked at him, her eyes steady and serious. "I love, human, you, strong. But law, hard." Aaron took both her hands. "Then follow your heart," he said. "I will wait. I will face anything with you. No law, no fear can change what I feel." Nira smiled faintly, feeling warmth in his words. For the first time, she felt hope. The choice was difficult, yet she realized her heart had already decided. Aaron had shown her that humans, though simple compared to her people, were capable of courage, loyalty, and love. The night deepened. The stars above twinkled silently, as if waiting for her decision. Nero leaned against Aaron, feeling the rhythm of his heartbeat. She knew the path ahead would be difficult. Leaving her people behind would not be easy, and her life would change forever. Yet for the first time, she also knew that love was stronger than fear. The next morning, she finally spoke with certainty. "I choose you," she said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried a weight that settled over both of them. "Cannot return, cannot leave, stay, human, life." Aaron's heart leaped. He reached for her, holding her close. "Then we face the future together," he said. For Nira, the decision meant sacrifice, yet it also meant freedom. She would live in a world of humans, learning, helping, and loving. For Aaron, it meant hope, courage, and the bond of a lifetime. Together, they had chosen not only each other but the promise of a new life, where humans and aliens could learn from one another and grow stronger. The colony watched them from afar, curious but silent. The elders whispered among themselves, realizing that sometimes courage and love could outweigh fear and tradition. The path ahead was uncertain, but for Aaron and Nira, it was theirs to walk together. And under the same stars that had once seemed distant, two hearts beat in quiet promise, ready to face whatever the universe might bring. The days after Nira's choice were filled with quiet preparation. The colony had repaired the damage from the raider attack, and life returned to a steady rhythm. Yet for Aaron and Nira, everything had changed. Their bond was no longer hidden in whispers and glances, it was spoken, strong and true. Aaron often found himself walking beside Nira in the fields. She learned quickly, helping him plant seeds in straight rows, teaching him new methods to water and tend the crops. Children ran around them, laughing as Nira taught them how to make small tools from stones and scraps. The colony watched in awe. Nira had become not just a helper, but a teacher, a guide, and a friend. One evening, the elders called Aaron and Nira to the council hall. It was a quiet meeting, but filled with significance. The council wished to bless their bond, recognizing the courage and trust both had shown. Bram, the commander, smiled with respect. "You have both changed this colony," he said. "Your union is not just personal, it is a symbol. Humans can reach beyond fear, and even strangers can become family." Aaron looked at Nira. She seemed nervous, her hands clasped together. Yet when she met his eyes, a small smile formed. They had come far, but the final step was ahead. That night, the colony gathered under the stars. Lanterns were hung from trees and posts, casting soft golden light across the gathering. Families, children, and friends came to watch. Nira stood beside Aaron, her fingers lightly touching his. The wind moved gently through the plains, carrying with it the scent of earth and hope. Aaron whispered softly, almost to himself, "I hope you will say yes." Nira's eyes met his. She had already made her choice, yet the moment required her voice. She drew a deep breath, steadying herself. "Yes," she said clearly, a simple word but powerful in its meaning. The colony fell silent for a heartbeat, then erupted in quiet cheers. People clapped, smiled, and even the children ran forward to celebrate. The elders nodded, understanding that this union represented more than love. It was courage, respect, and hope all woven together. Aaron reached for Nira's hands and held them firmly. "I promise," he said, "to face everything with you. No danger, no fear, no distance can separate us. We are together, now and always." Nira nodded. Her voice was soft, but her eyes shone with determination. "I promise, to stand with you. To share this life. To learn your world, and teach mine." The people watched quietly, sensing the meaning of their words. Humans were often thought weak, simple, and fragile. Yet here was proof that humans could face impossible odds, fight for what mattered, and open their hearts to those from distant stars. The ceremony was simple. There were no grand decorations, no elaborate rituals. Aaron and Nira stood beneath the sky, holding hands as the elders gave their blessings. Lanterns glowed softly, flickering in the night breeze. The stars above reflected in Nira's eyes, and Aaron felt as if the universe itself had paused to witness this moment. Later, the two walked through the valley where her ship rested. Though still broken, it no longer seemed a symbol of loss. It was a reminder of courage, of the journey they had shared, and of the new life they would build together. Aaron traced the scratches and dents on the metal hull, remembering how fear had once gripped them here. But now, he saw hope and strength instead. Nero looked at him. "Home, now," she said, pointing not to the stars, but to the colony. Aaron smiled. "Yes, home," he agreed. In the following weeks, life settled into a new rhythm. Nero learned more about humans, their ways, and their stories. Aaron learned from her, discovering knowledge and skills beyond anything he had imagined. Together, they worked to strengthen the colony, preparing it for challenges that might come from the stars. Their love became a story told quietly to children and newcomers. A story of courage, trust, and the bonds that can form between worlds. Humans were more than survivors, they were thinkers, builders, and friends to those who came seeking peace. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in shades of gold and purple, Aaron and Nira sat on a hill overlooking the colony. The lanterns glowed softly, the people moved quietly below, and the stars appeared one by one. Aaron looked at Nira. "We did it," he said. "We faced everything, and now we have this life." Nira smiled. "Yes," she replied, her voice steady and clear. "Together, always." The stars above seemed to shine brighter that night, reflecting the hope and courage of the humans below. The colony had survived, had fought, and had grown stronger because of the bond between one human and one alien girl. For Aaron and Nira, life was no longer about survival alone. It was about building, learning, and loving. They had chosen each other, and in doing so, they had shown that humans were not weak, they were brave, capable, and full of heart. And as they held hands under the endless sky, they knew that the universe was vast, full of challenges and wonders, but also full of hope. For those who dared to trust, to fight, and to love, nothing was impossible. The night carried their promise forward, a quiet story of courage and love that would live on in the hearts of all who saw it.